The blockade of Iranian ports by Zua is fully implemented. Central Command announced that no ships have entered or left those Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz. The president's blockade is increasing pressure on that Islamic regime, possibly forcing it to return to the negotiating table, maybe even in the next few days. I'm Harris Faulkner. Are you on the Faulkner Focus? The CENTCOM commander, Admiral Brad Cooper, said, in less than 36 hours of blockade, U.S. forces completely stopped all incoming and outgoing trade from Iran by command. E saída do Irã por mar. The blockade is a military operation. According to CENTCOM, more than 10,000 troops, over a dozen warships, and dozens of aircraft are taking part in the action. And this image gives us a very clear view of how the blockade in the Gulf of Oman is being enforced. The Gulf is the largest body of water near the Strait of Hormuz. This gives more space for military operations, and from this point of view, our military can identify ships earlier at sea and track them over a greater distance. This gives more time to determine whether the ships can pass or if they need to turn back, and that's what's happening. President Trump is talking about the progress because of what you see there.
It's actually been incredible. I thought this was going to happen. They reacted to that even, I think, we obliterated them, and this almost seems to be more of a reaction than what we had before. I think it's almost over. Yeah, I see this as very close to the end. You know what? If I pulled out now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild their country, and we're not finished. We'll see what happens. I think they really want to make a deal.
Former Black Hawk helicopter pilot and battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Darren Galba in the spotlight with senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy. Peter.
White House officials insist, Harris, or rather, they acknowledge the high gas prices but insist that they could have been even higher.
If you had told me that we would be at just $92 per barrel, I would have been really very surprised.
Right?
And you know what? I'm really happy. And that's going to drop drastically as soon as this is over. And I think it might end very soon. So if you guys are smart, it'll end pretty quickly.
The president is confident that his Monday warning to China not to send weapons to Iran under penalty of sanctions was heard. He posted, "China celebrates me opening the Strait of Hormuz. I do this for them and for the world. This will not happen again. They will not send weapons to Iran. President Xi will hug me when I get there soon. We work well together and intelligently. Isn't this better than fighting? But remember, we are very good at fighting if necessary, much better than anyone else." We also just heard about how long it might take for high gas prices to come down.
Oil and natural gas, and these are exactly the products that the Biden administration has tried to restrict in order to limit access to abundant and low-cost energy. That's where the president wants to take us, with energy security and national and international stability. He is working on this very quickly, and that's what small businesses will benefit from in the long run.
Yes.
Along with deregulation.
Loeffler and Secretary Scott Bessent will be in the meeting room in less than 2 hours, arguing that Trump's policies are putting more money in people's pockets despite gas prices that may rise even higher. Harris.
Yes, tax season. The president was preparing for this with that interview with Maria, and it looks like tax season will help make up for that with deductions, no taxes on tips, and that sort of thing. Peter, thank you. I've been reporting on this, including yesterday, following the cost of this blockade against Iran. Their economy was already struggling, and this shows how much they're being hurt and why this is so effective. Not a single shot was fired. The Iranian regime loses about $435 million a day because their ships can't enter or leave their ports through the Strait of Hormuz. This includes $276 million in exports, money they could have received by selling to other countries. Ouch. Besides that, they're being hit by even worse news about inflation and currency devaluation. Here's more from the researcher who did all the analysis and whom I've been following.
So they probably have around 13 to 15, maybe 14 to 16 days of sufficient storage for oil to store the oil that they can export. When they run out of storage space, then they'll have to reduce oil extraction. Reducing oil extraction will not only hurt their export volume or oil production in the long run, but it will also lead to an increase in the unemployment rate. It's the heart of Iran's economy. It accounts for, 80% of Iran's revenue that's used to keep government operations running.
They're feeling it. The Wall Street Journal calls the blockade a crisis for Iran. It says the economic damage is immediate and threatens the regime if the situation persists. Featured now, Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, retired Black Hawk helicopter pilot and battalion commander. It's a pleasure to have you featured. Look, have you ever seen anything like this before? A blockade to efficiency and speed, not to the firing of bullets.
Harris, I definitely haven't seen it. And actually, I was trying to remember how long it's been since we've seen American naval forces participate in a blockade, honestly, of almost any size. And I had trouble finding anything more recent than the American Civil War. And before that, it was around the War of 1812. Well, you could extend that to the fight against the Barbary pirates in the Mediterranean. So that's something that has always been present in the Navy's tactics manual among the things they can do. Well, we don't need to do that, nor have we been in situations where it was necessary. So it's not exactly a historic first, but it's certainly the first time in a long time.
I saw earlier today Pakistan's military leader arrived in Iran, and mediators are now trying to organize a new round of peace talks between the U.S., El Masri, and Iran. If that happens, it might be soon. You're quick thinking, because this idea that you've mentioned before, peace through strength, that's what the president has said. Actually, that's working in this case, and it could lead to more peace talks. What do you think?
Yes, it can. And I think peace negotiations are always worth it. If it takes a few more days, that's fine. I prefer the blockade and the economic consequences to get there rather than hostilities. First of all, we don't want to use American forces in places like Karg Island, and a blockade is more effective and achieves the same results. But if we keep pressing on the economic issue, maybe the Iranian dictators will realize their true situation and sit at the negotiating table to reach a real agreement and negotiation. I'm still a bit skeptical about the possibility of them doing that, but it's always worth trying instead of, going back to a bombing campaign.
Latest news on NATO's role in the conflict with Iran. The quote says, European countries are planning a broad coalition to clear maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, sending minesweepers and military personnel. But the plan would only be implemented after the end of the war and may exclude the United States. France and the United Kingdom announced a video conference for Friday with the participation of about 40 countries expected, and the president published today, NATO was not there for us and will not be there for us in the future. I mean, this isn't just a few words exchanged back and forth now. This feels real.
It does seem that way, Harris. Having worked extensively with NATO among various nations, it's sad to see where this is going, and that's largely the choice of the European NATO nations, and not so much our choice. It's a challenge because NATO could be very positive, but it has become more of a political tool than a military alliance. I believe the company's future is at risk. If they wanted to help, they could have joined long ago instead of waiting for us to do the hard work.
I wanted to ask a quick question because I know you fought, and without a doubt, you may have been on the battlefield alongside some British forces. What's going on? That they don't see that this special relationship between the United Kingdom and Zikab and Ewa is something they can't survive without.
I think that's the difference between politicians and the military in the end. And I'm specifically talking about the more junior levels of the armed forces. The British SAS and other forces are among the best in the world. We have a great relationship with them, but I think, as often happens, politicians get in the way and the relationship ends up revolving around them instead of us. We served with pride in the past, and we would do it again if called upon. I hope they reconsider and see the relationship should continue. And that can really be positive in the near future, if they want to.
All right. Thank you, Colonel Galby, for joining us in Focus.